In today's society, it's easier than ever to fall into the trappings of a cult. According to former cult member Flora Brown, everyone, even you, are susceptible to falling prey to cult activity because, according to her, by the time people figure out what they've actually bought into, their whole life is committed to serving the cult community. Throughout the next 7 minutes, I will walk you through three major cults, with the third one being a cult that's still ongoing today. The cults in question I'll be talking about are the People's Temple, the Ant Hill Kids, and the cult that's coming up around the spiritualist known as Teal Swan. The first cult I'm going to talk about is one that almost everyone knows of, but may not know the name of. That cult is the People's Temple. It was run by a man named Jim Jones, pictured here. And in the beginning, things weren't all bad. The cult started coming up in Indianapolis in the 1950s. Jim Jones got people into his church by telling them his church would give them something now rather than making them wait for the afterlife. And he genuinely started doing good work in the neighborhood, like helping with integration, as his congregation was over 50% African American. Jim Jones was unique as a cult leader, and that the main pull of his message at official temple meetings wasn't surrounding religion, it was actually built on socialism. He presented an ideal of everyone, no matter what race, being treated fairly and being taken care of. However, things were not good forever. The expectations to be on 24/7 made Jim Jones turn to amphetamine so he could keep up his energy, which led to him wearing his signature aviator sunglasses and also led to the decline of his physical and mental health. The end of the People's Temple itself came on November 18th, 1978. Jones had taken a group of his followers, nearly 1,000 people, to the South American country of Guyana. After only a little over a year and several terrifying rehearsals, the end came to fruition. This group, comprised of one-third elderly people, one-third children, and one-third adults, were all led through an act that Jones called revolutionary suicide, according to Jeff Gwynne, who wrote the novel The Road to Jonestown. He pushed all of his followers to drink poisoned Flavor Aid, which was mistakenly reported as being Kool-Aid and led to the now cliche phrase of "don't drink the Kool-Aid," while two-thirds of his followers died willingly and the remaining third were either forcefully injected with poison or shot, along with Congressman Leo Ryan and his security crew, who were there due to many concerned family members back in the US wanting the commune to be investigated. The second cult I want to touch on is called the Ant Hill Kids. This cult centered around a supposedly extremely charismatic man known as Roch Thériault. He originally brought people to him by running a Seventh-day Adventist clinic that helped people stop smoking. But slowly and surely, he pulled this group of people that was comprised of 4 men, 9 women, and 4 children away from society and with him into the Canadian wilderness. Once there, Thériault slowly started abusing all of his followers, both physically and mentally. He also further isolated all of them by making them change their names to biblical ones instead of the names they already had. He began claiming he was a prophet that could speak to God directly, and had all of his followers start calling him Moses. Because of that religious connection, his followers stayed with him through an unfathomable amount of abuse. Some of the women there would run away to shelters, but they always returned to him. Roch Thériault was a strong polygamist that had every woman in his cult at his beck and call, until one night, after performing amateur surgery on his favorite wife, he caused internal bleeding and she passed away. No one immediately left the cult at this point, but everyone said it changed Thériault a lot. The actual final straw for most cult members was when he took the only nurse they had and literally cut her arm off, after botching an attempt at fixing her broken fingers that he had, of course, broken himself. The nurse fled the cult, but with nowhere to go, wound up sleeping in the woods overnight. When she awoke, she literally had maggots and other bugs crawling in the open wound Thériault had left where he'd cut her arm off. And only this was a breaking point that caused some, but not all, of the cult members to fully flee him and go to the authorities, which thankfully made it so no one else died, and Roch Thériault is now spending the rest of his life in prison. The third and final cult I'm going to discuss here is one that's very recent and still exists right now. There's no official name for this final cult, although members do refer to themselves as the Teal Tribe. This is an extremely modern movement that all sprung up around a woman named Teal Swan. She works with disgraced psychologist Barbara Snow on helping herself and her followers recover memories. This technique gained popularity in the 80s during the Satanic Panic, but has since been proven to be complete nonsense. Despite this, Swan encourages her followers to go through with the practice and convinces them things that never happened to them are real. The worst part about this movement, though, is Swan's outlook on death. Reincarnation as a concept is absolutely fine and is an integral part of Buddhism. However, Teal Swan's ideals surrounding the concept are very problematic. She has a video where she calls suicide a reset button, according to Libo Disseco, that published an article on the BBC.com. And several former members of her group have mentioned being told by her directly to kill themselves, on top of the fact that at least 2 of her followers have actually killed themselves. And Teal talked about one of them in a video telling the girl's sister that the girl that had killed herself was fine and reincarnated mere days later. Swan's videos are very easily accessible, and she knows the algorithms and makes sure anyone searching the term suicide for any reason gets directed to her videos. While YouTube has removed the official video where Teal calls suicide a reset button, there are other accounts that have uploaded copies of it. We need to make sure we protect these vulnerable people from someone who is so obviously careless in doing them harm. All of this information is to show you how cults can completely take over your mind and your life, and it isn't always easy to tell when you're falling into one. You join a group like the People's Temple because of them achieving great things in your neighborhood. You join a group like the Anthill Kids because you're just trying to quit smoking. Or you lose yourself to videos of Teal Swan because it feels good to have someone beautiful tells you that there is an escape from your pain. The dangers of cults are all around us. And with how much we've had to hold ourselves back in our social lives for the last few years, it explains why it's easier than ever to fall into the trappings of a cult.